In this video I want to talk about motivation, and more specifically about kind of two types of motivation. About actual real motivation, and then about kind of this fake motivation, about what more and more people tend to think about when they hear motivation. And that is, I kind of use this kind of mock case where you have like random lower and uppercase letters to signify that. So this is this kind of fake motivation. And what I mean with this is really kind of what you think about when you think about motivation in like, or rather motivational videos, motivational music, God damn it, a motivational movie, motivation speeches, quotes, etc. All this kind of stuff, which you can find on the internet and social media, on social media, of course, which is really, it tries to motivate, but it doesn't really work. And of course it has motivation in its name, and it's kind of like, and you feel like it's motivating you, but this is really, again, a sort of fake motivation. Why is it fake? Well, because it is just a short emotional high is really what it is. And so what you feel, or what you try to interpret as motivation, is really nothing but a motivation, an emotional pump, really. A sort of, emotional high. So you kind of get sucked into this, for example, into a video, and the video manipulates your emotions through sounds and images in such a way that you feel motivated, that you feel, I can do it, I want to do it, whatever it is, and all of this stuff. But it's really just a simulation. And I kind of have this slide with like an arrow to emotional manipulation, because that is really what it is. Your emotions are being in a sort of way manipulated. And this is not to mean that, like, with the word manipulation, it's kind of awkward, because people, when you say manipulation, people always think of like evil. Oh, someone tries to manipulate you. Oh, that's kind of evil. But if we think about it without like this kind of moral blah blah judgment stuff, is it not manipulation if your emotions are being changed in a orchestrated way? And now again, the manipulation on like social media, is this like evil? Are the people who are kind of creating these videos or this music or this kind of stuff, are they evil? Are they trying to kind of lure you into something bad? No, of course not. They're trying to create these videos to, I mean, on social media, it's really to gain clicks, to gain like a following, to gain attention, all this kind of stuff, to have the videos shared with others so they go viral or whatever. In like the music industry, and also the like movie industry, and also like TV series, but I mean series is like this kind of longer form stuff is really I think, I mean, of course some of that is also trying to motivate you, but it's really about like this short-term social media content, really, when we're thinking about like motivation in that context. Anyways, are they trying to manipulate you now into doing something bad? No, they just want you to consume their stuff. So they get, again, attention, money, all this kind of stuff. And the same goes with like quotes and speeches on social media. I mean, it's the same thing, right? So this manipulation is meant to only lead you to consumption. So it really, like, to have like a moral, to kind of frame this in a moral context, I think kind of misses the point. So when I say emotional manipulation, I mean it in a rather technical way. Manipulation as in change. Your emotions are being changed from the outside. So this is what I mean with that. And it kind of goes way deeper than that. It kind of, we can kind of talk about like the term propaganda in this context, but I think this is too much for this video, because this is meant to be about motivation. But suffice it to say, this type of motivation, again, is fake, because it is orchestrated from the outside. It has nothing to do with you in particular, and also not with whatever you're trying to do, whatever you're trying to achieve. So, and it also doesn't have any real lasting effect. That isn't to say that stuff like this can motivate you to act. Of course it can. A short emotional pump, of course it can lead you to do things, to start with something, to finally get up and do whatever you want to do, right? Of course it can have that effect, but it cannot have that effect in any lasting way. And this is really, I think, what motivation kind of boils down to. So the next thing, which directly kind of ties into this, is about dedication. Because on social media, or generally in like modern society, what you also hear a lot is, well, it's not about motivation, but it's about dedication. And this, I think, very much misses the point. And it also kind of, I think people who say something like that see motivation as in this kind of mock version of it, which I have just characterized. So in this kind of emotional pump version, in this kind of get motivated videos on YouTube version. And of course they're right, it's about dedication, because you can only do anything of real like substance when you're dedicated. Because I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day, and nothing of real value is built in a day. That's how it is. So you need to be dedicated, you need to do your stuff every day and all this kind of stuff. But again, this misses the point, because you are not going to be dedicated if you are not motivated. So motivation is really the first point that leads you to dedication. Because, I mean, you're not a robot. You cannot do something every day in which you see no purpose, no point. So the most important thing about all of this, and also like for motivation, of course, is why. Why do the thing? Why create whatever? Why? Why does this matter? Why is this important? And yeah, I think this is kind of the main point for motivation. And if you have a why, you can be dedicated because, well, you have something to fall back on. You have something, when you ask, well, why should I do this today again for the, I don't know, 100th time? You have something that you can, again, fall back on and think to yourself, well, this is why, yeah, I remember, yeah, this is why I wanted to do this, is why I am going to do this. If all you have is this kind of emotional pump motivation, you kind of need to, okay, yeah, it's kind of a chore, you know? You kind of need to bring yourself to do the thing again, and it kind of gets mechanical and technical on that. So you need to, again, kind of give yourself this emotional pump to motivate you to act. But this, again, with stuff like this, it's the same as with physical dependence. You kind of build up a tolerance, and the same holds true for kind of this, what I call emotional pump in this context. So for these motivational videos, you can watch that, but after a while you realize slowly but surely, well, it's the same thing over and over again. And not only in meaning it's the same kind of type of stuff I'm seeing here, but also if you watch enough of that stuff, like if you watch enough motivational videos, you realize, well, it's literally the same stuff. Like it's the same clips, it's the same music, it's the same type of cutting, it's the same kind of arc of this video, beginning, middle, end, this kind of stuff, etc. It's the same stuff, and it kind of gets stale, and it doesn't have the same effect as it had in the beginning. So, going on a tangent here, what I want to say is why. The why is important, and the why is the most important thing, because, again, it's the kind of principle, the kind of first point of you actually doing whatever it is you want to do. So, what I also want to say is motivation is not technical. As I just said, you are not a robot. So, you cannot be convinced over any substantial period of time by technical necessity, you could say. Because if something is necessary for you to do, of course you might do it. The more necessary it is, the more likely you are to do it, of course. But motivation is then not really the driving factor. Now, is it? It is necessity. So, what I mean with this is kind of, I think we need to differentiate between motivation, between doing your stuff for which you have a why, for which you have your own why, because you want to do it, and between, on the other hand, stuff that, well, you kind of need to do to, for example, exist in society. You need to earn money because you need money to exist in modern society. That's how it is. So, is that really motivation in the end, or is it just, well, you're kind of forced to? You're, well, not kind of forced to, you're literally forced to. Because if you don't have money to pay, for example, your rent, and if this kind of state holds on, eventually you're going to be removed by force from your apartment, for example. So it is kind of not really at all motivation which is leading you to, for example, earn money, to also, for example, learn something for a better job or stuff like this. This is not really motivation, I would say. And also, I want to kind of only touch on this a bit, because this would again be too much for this video, but the trend we're seeing today very much, I think, shows this and proves this, because, I mean, we all see it. It's kind of obvious what we are converging on, what modern society is converging on, and that is full automation. And, I mean, it's gonna be, I don't know how long, until like actual complete full automation. Maybe it's never gonna happen completely, but we are more and more coming into a kind of age where most people really cannot contribute, or a lot of people, let's just say that, cannot contribute anything to society, anything that is valued in society, because all the medial stuff, all the simple stuff has been automated, and more complex stuff is being automated all the time. I mean, look at, for example, AI and what it has done to, like, kind of, well, I mean, yeah, to kind of a lot of fields of work. So, and this is not gonna be like the last of it. Of course not. So, what I want to say is, there will be a solution for types, or for people who cannot contribute anything to society, and this is going to be some kind of UBI, so some kind of universal basic income, because it has to be. So, because this is just how it goes. So, in the end, what I want to say, is that it is not going to be necessary, this is a long tangent, but there's a point, that it is not going to be necessary for you, or for, well, anyone, to do really anything to exist in modern society. Everyone will be carried along, or most people will be carried along, because, again, they have nothing, they cannot contribute anything, because all they could contribute has been automated. It has been centralized because of technicality. Well, yeah, so that's a whole rabbit hole to go down. But this is, my point here is that if you really, like, think it through to the end, if technicality has to do with necessity, has to do with force, has to do with being forced, and this has nothing to do with motivation. Because, again, yeah, so I hope this is understandable. So, if motivation is not technical, what is it then? Well, it's personal. It's always personal. It's only personal. This is also the reason why you cannot be motivated by some guy on YouTube, because he doesn't know you. He doesn't know your life. He doesn't relate to you. He cannot speak to you. His content cannot directly relate to you. Of course, you can kind of transfer it to your own life, to your own situation. Of course, I'm not saying that this stuff cannot have any effect on you. Any lasting effect, that is. But if we break it down, motivation is always personal. It's always, and this is kind of one of these things where I think the modern, maybe the modern spirit kind of, there's always a tendency to laugh at personal reasons. And this is, the reason I think also is that if you see some guy you have no connection with, who's anonymous to you, who you don't know and who doesn't know you on, for example, the internet, on social media, and he tells you his reason for learning whatever, for doing whatever, it always kind of sounds, it kind of sounds weird, because, again, you have no connection to this person, and he's sharing something personal, and you cannot really relate in a direct way. Of course, you can relate if you kind of see the dynamics in his life and you transfer it to your own life. Yeah, sure. But not in a direct way again. So, motivation, I think, is always personal, because only personal stuff has the weight, the kind of weight attributed to it by yourself, to be able to motivate you over any substantial period of time. Again, if you only want to do something once today, of course, like, some emotional pump will get you through it, I guess. But if you need to do, or if you want to do something substantial, which takes a long time, you need some deep-rooted motivation, which is really, again, I think, the only type of motivation. And this type is always personal. So, And again, we can, if we want to be derogatory and very modern, we can laugh at kind of the human pettiness of this. Because again, if you see some random guy, some anonymous person on the internet who shares his reasons, who shares his motivation, it always kind of sounds a bit petty. It's always the kind of, well, I did this out of spite, out of maybe even out of anger against some person. And I mean, these types of emotions, or rather feelings, I think can get you pretty far. I mean, spite is very powerful in that sense. But if you kind of talk about this, again, it kind of sounds, it can sound petty if we want to be like derogatory. Or also, well, I did this because because of, we could say maybe glory, because I knew I wanted to do this, because I would regret it if I didn't do it. This kind of stuff. And again, so motivation is never impersonal. It always has to do with you and your life and your situation, also the people in your life. So, for example, to give you an example for spite, you might work at some company and might have a boss, and he's kind of you don't really like him, he's not that great a guy. And you think, well, I don't want to work here anymore. I'm going to do what he does with his company, but I'm going to do it myself with my own company, and I'm going to do it better. And this might sound like, if you say, well, I only did this, or I mainly did this because the guy was getting on my nerves and I don't like him, it kind of sounds like, well, okay. But if you kind of really get into these types of feelings, if you really think yourself or feel yourself into them, and think to yourself, well, in this example now, well, do I really want to work at this company like however long, like for the foreseeable future, and do I want to be annoyed by this boss type all the time, and this kind of stuff? And so yeah, I hope you know, or you understand what I'm trying to get at. So to conclude, I think I don't want to kind of put this kind of motivational content or whatever down. I think but I think it's important to kind of put it in its place and to see it for what it is, and that is short emotional high, short emotional pump. In some sense, also emotional manipulation, because it wants to keep you watching, to keep you consuming. And yeah, and I think the real motivation that kind of leads you to sustained action, to over a longer period of time, over a substantial period of time, can only come from personal reasons. And it's always weird to kind of talk about the stuff, especially to people you don't know, because oftentimes it can seem petty if there's not really a technical necessity behind it. You might think, well, why? Like, what's the necessity of doing that? Isn't it easier, in this example I've given, to just stay in the company, stay employed, and have the security and safety, and all this, and just kind of ignore your boss? I mean, yeah, sure, but this is the reason why you kind of need to think things through, first of all, of course, and also kind of not ignore your feelings, these types of feelings, which are, we could say, rationally motivated, to kind of ignore them and go over them out of professionality, for example. I think at least that's important, and that's the best way to have a substantial motivation through which you can actually achieve stuff. So yeah, but these are just some of my thoughts on motivation. Again, I've touched on a few things which would be way too much for this video. So on the whole, like, full automation, UBI thing, and also on the kind of propaganda, emotional manipulation thing. So yeah, I might expand on these in the future, but I think that's enough for this video. And yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to say. Have a nice day.